No one makes a movie quite like Austin-based director Richard Linklater. He's known for character-focused hangout movies that have iconic soundtracks and a laid-back attitude. But what is a hangout movie?
There are certain movies that you hang out with the characters so much that they actually become your friends. And it's a really rare quality to have in a film. And it doesn't rarely happen, and those movies are usually quite long, because it actually takes that long of a time to get past a movie character where you actually feel you know the person and you like them.
Always conceived of this movie as kind of like a party to be invited to, and then to be just glad you went to a fun party. You got to hang out with some fun, eccentric, kind of cool people who seemed like your friends, and it was just a good time.
In 1991, Linklater brought the genre to the indie scene with Slacker, an ensemble movie that constantly shifts perspectives and doesn't follow a standard plot.
I really wanted people thinking that, well, we're just viewing these people, but it could be other people. Like, everyone has a life, and we're going to see 2 minutes of these 100 people's life, just a weird intersection. But really, I kind of saw the movie as maybe like 50 movies going on simultaneously, and you're just jumping from one to the next.
It can be difficult to reach an audience without standard tension building and payoff. So, in order to give his large-scale hangout movies a universal quality, Richard Linklater does something counterintuitive. He gets specific. By writing from his own life experience, he's able to reach the audience in a way that would normally be impossible for such broadly focused films.
If you do something that means a lot to you, that the power of cinema will translate, that feeling you're investing in, even if you're just filming this coffee cup, but this coffee cup means a lot to me because, that will, through the power of cinema alone, can have that potential to communicate something on some other level. So I take something in boyhood, like, a kid staring at a decomposing bird. I did that, I remember it, but will that mean anything to anybody else? And I don't have to think too much about that. I go, it will.
The most memorable parts about Linklater movies are almost always somehow personally connected to him. For instance, the story of Before Sunrise is based on a real-life encounter that he had.
I was in Philadelphia visiting my sister. I was there one night, kind of coming back from New York, and I just met a girl at a toy store, and we ended up walking around Philly all night. That was it. She was working there, and so I, filmmaker. I'd already made a couple films, and I was, even as that experience was going on, about 3 in the morning, I was like, the curse of nothing's real unless you can make a film about it. So I was like, I'm gonna make a film about this. And she's like, what this? What are you talking about? I mean, just this feeling, this thing that's going on between us.
Another example of Linklater's semi-autobiographical process is the animated lucid dreaming movie, Waking Life.
What happens to him really happened to me as a teenager. I think I was about 18. And so as I started getting into film and other things, that always stayed with me, but it quickly became like a narrative structure. Like, oh, how could that work in storytelling?
And as with most artists, a filmmaker's upbringing finds its way into their movies, whether intentionally or not. Linklater happily opens up about this in interviews.
So your mom was doing what?
Academic. She was getting her degree and master's degree. So I grew up with her kind of a student, and then she kind of came into her own as a teacher, and we moved around based on her teaching jobs, and a lot like the movie Boyhood.
I was just going to say that.
Kind of an intelligent, passionate woman who kind of took her kids through, her life.
I guess looking back, my high school years I had more mixed feelings about, so I dealt with that earlier in my career. In college, looking back, it was more fun. I don't think I had any demons, less demons floating around those years.
Even when I do stuff like a studio film, School of Rock, like I lived in that room. I see myself as, in a parallel life, I am Jack's character, a guy who has some passion. It wasn't rock and roll, but it was filmmaking, who's laying around in a little room and everyone thinks he's kind of a bum.
On the other hand, it's important to note that his process is less cut and dry than autobiography.
Part of me says, yeah, it's all real, but it's like none of it's real too. I mean, it's based on real things, but it's always these people aren't exact people. There's composites, there's thoughts, some of it's later stuff. Things I didn't realize till 10 years later.
Linklater doesn't just fling his life story onto the screen. Instead, he only incorporates elements that affected him deeply because he knows that they'll in turn resonate with the audience.
Like Bernie I grew up in East Texas, this is set in East Texas. It's very personal. Now, have I been to prison? I've visited prisons. I had a dad who was a prison guard. Have I killed someone? Am I a closeted gay man? No, but I know this world. I really close to home, not point by point autobiographical.
The more specifically he presents these elements, the more universal the movie becomes. Richard Linklater's films speak to a larger shared experience, only revealed through the little details.
You know, everything's about stakes in the screenplay. The stakes are, oh, if he doesn't get that, then he'll not achieve this, and you know, here come all the plot points. And I'm like, what are the stakes? It's like you're alive, you know?
I don't know. Speaking before the UN is as important as, you know, getting water at your grocery store or whatever. I don't know. It just seems like it's all part of a life and like how you approach it. If you can find some joy or some poetry or something kind of beautiful about the banal things, then everything else is, then you're much more set, I think. What I strive for is to be excited about brushing your teeth or, you know, all the crap you have to do in life, like, because that is your life.